I just want to say a word about Kamala Harris, the vice president, because she really put herself out there over the past few months at great risk and peril to herself and her family. She was thrown into the deep end of the pool politically and hit all her marks and then some, and showed up for America.
This really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign.
Was it?
Amazing. Amazing.
Well, the fine folks over at MSNBC were in utter disbelief that the Democratic candidate, Kamala Harris, lost the presidential election last night because, according to them, her campaign was flawless. Now, here's
when propaganda goes wrong.
Now, here is Joy Reid making the case. She's making the case. She's gonna bolster the argument that Kamala Harris had a perfect campaign. Let's watch.
And I think it's important to say that, anyone who has experienced or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and knows it cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Let's just be clear. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swift. She had the Swifties. She had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
Okay, but Cenk, Queen Latifah.
Oh my God, she got Queen Latifah?
Queen Latifah.
Okay, thank God we're gonna be in the White House. I wonder who her cabinet's gonna be, because she ran a flawless campaign. She said you couldn't have done it any better. She lost. You don't think you could run a campaign any better than losing?
She was.
That's amazing. She lost the popular vote. Okay, Jesus Christ, what kind of alternate reality do they live in?
Kamala Harris ran on the message of saving democracy as she was campaigning alongside a neoconservative like Liz Cheney, who ran interference, provided cover for the Bush administration, which violated our constitutional rights and suspended habeas corpus. Just something to keep in mind. But she was a perfect candidate, Cenk. Perfect candidate. It's just that she was a black woman. And no country would ever elect a black woman, or the United States, of course, because we're just inherently a racist, terrible country, of course. And we would never elect someone named Barack Hussein Obama, who's also black, except we did twice.
And he polled at 83% popularity after his first victory. So this apparently in this country that is so racist that they would never elect a black woman had a black president at 83% approval.
Exactly.
Okay, but no, it's not the fault of your beloved Democratic politicians. Never that.
Guys, I just, look, this is something that I like to do time to time, just to make sure that I'm not going crazy. Because if you look at Obama's campaign speeches, you can juxtapose campaign Obama to President Obama, because when he was in campaign mode, he got it. Like, he understood what kind of messaging resonated with Americans, okay? He ran, I would argue, I wouldn't say flawless, nothing is flawless, right? But as close to flawless of a campaign, especially in 2008, as you could possibly run. And it's because he had a message that resonated with the frustrations of the American people, right? The economic instability, we were in the financial collapse of 2008 at the time, the frustration over the wars abroad. I mean, campaign Obama was incredible, so incredible that it didn't matter what his name was, it didn't matter what his skin color was. What mattered was the substance of what he was saying. We didn't know what Kamala Harris really stood for. We didn't. Let's be real about that. And so that was a problem. To say that she ran a perfect campaign and then point to Queen Latifah endorsing her as evidence of a flawless campaign is delusional.
No, I'm never gonna forget that line. That's now instantly one of my favorite lines. It's like an ESPN classic. She ran a perfect campaign, she got Queen Latifah. What more could any candidate do? And then she added, she had every prominent celebrity. totally oblivious to the fact that nobody gives a goddamn about your stupid celebrities. You care about them because you're like, oh, celebrities, oh my God. You guys are so precious, right? But what does a guy who's a steel worker in Pennsylvania care about Queen Latifah or even Beyonce or whatever? So look, I don't mind the celebrity endorsements. Maybe they help around the edges. Maybe Taylor Swift got some younger voters in, although younger voters didn't show up to vote because they didn't get anything from the Democratic Party. They would have much preferred student debt relief than Queen Latifah or Beyonce, okay? But and it's not to say that there aren't some racists that voted against her because she's black, and there is some misogynists and sexists who voted against her because she's a woman. Of course there are, right? But was that the driving force in this election? No, the fact that they didn't deliver and that they thought just getting a bunch of celebrities around themselves and having corporate CEOs sign a letter saying she's great and getting Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney to say how wonderful they were and raising $1 billion meant that you ran a perfect campaign. Those are not the ends, those are the means. And they're not even the correct means. But they can't see straight. To be fair, I was gonna say to MSNBC, but I don't know if I'm over extrapolating, but when Joy Reid said the Queen Latifah line, it looked like Chris Hayes went like, okay.
Can we watch it again?
Yeah, or when she said she ran a flawless campaign. Let's rewatch it. I'm curious to see if I'm right about that or not.
And I think it's important to say that, anyone who has experienced or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and knows it cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Let's just be clear. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent.
That was amazing. You're right. You're right.
When she said flawless the second, he was like, okay. And then she said Queen Latifah, and it was like, but you know what? On MSNBC, you're not allowed to correct her. You're not allowed to say, Joy, what the hell are you talking about, right?
Certainly.
She got more white votes. Kamala Harris got more white votes than Obama did. She lost the majority of Latino men. She lost 20% of black men. It was minorities. And it's not, and look, we never play that MSNBC game of blame the voters.
Right.
No, we're saying that you didn't deliver for those folks.
Exactly, yes.
And the reason young people didn't show up in the numbers that you expected and other folks didn't show up isn't because they're in a particular demographic. It's because they're normal human beings that care about their wages, that care about the debt that they have, they care about housing prices, etc. And when you look, in the beginning, Kamala Harris was running a good campaign. Not flawless, but good. She was talking about housing prices. She was talking about price gouging. She picked Tim Walz. People really liked that. She surged. She was up 5-6 points in the polls. By the end, she was tied in the polls. And as I told you a million times, if you're tied in a national poll, and a Democrat, you can't win the Electoral College, and that's exactly what happened.
I want to end with one more video because the blame game has already started. There's a lot of blame toward Latinos, a lot of blame toward white women because, of course, white women, the bane of this country's existence. I mean, the biggest enemy. But looks like the Harris campaign is blaming Biden as well. Let's take a look.
Obviously, there's going to be a lot of soul searching and asking a lot of questions in the coming hours and days about what, if anything, could Democrats and the Harris campaign have done differently. One thing that we are clearly already starting to see take place is finger pointing and the blame game. And a lot of that is going to be directed at President Biden. And this is even coming from some folks inside of the Harris campaign. One senior official I just talked to said Biden will hold a lot of blame for it. And frankly, they said he should. When his performance completely blew up at the CNN debate over the summer, he had no choice, ultimately was forced to get out of the race. And that's why we ended up having this very truncated Kamala Harris campaign in the first place. And Democrats are looking back on all of this and thinking, what about that parallel universe where Joe Biden had not sought a second term and there had been a full Democratic primary contest where the party actually chose whoever they thought was going to be the strongest person to run a full campaign.
Yeah, in a democratic process, we should have had the option of choosing who the best candidate is through some sort of primary process, and Biden should not have run for a second term. I totally agree with that criticism. I don't think that that's inaccurate criticism at all, but he was selfish and had to be forced out, and he was forced out when it was too late. We didn't have a primary process. She was anointed the Democratic candidate.
Yeah, but for all the Biden shouldn't have done that, and we agree 100%, and there's misogyny in the world, of course, for all of the different factors that went into it. They're all making giant excuses for Democratic leadership because MSNBC does propaganda. These are the same people who told you that Joe Biden was young and dynamic and had no problems at all. And they said, we meet with him behind the scenes and he'll talk for 3 hours and be the most, and then he goes on and debates, says, we're gonna defeat Medicare, right? So they're literally lying on purpose. And here they are, they're running interference for Democratic politicians so you don't blame the person who actually ran the campaign and the consultants and the lobbyists who ran those campaigns, because they're best friends with the people that work at MSNBC. There was no soul searching. All there was finger pointing. If they did soul searching, they'd figure out why they actually lost this race, which is that they did not appeal to the voters enough and they did not deliver enough for the voters. And instead, all they did was these semantics of Queen Latifah and we love celebrities and CEOs. That's why you should vote for us, which was the worst possible strategy. Thanks for watching the video, guys. We also love it if you hit the join button below because that makes you a member, and members allow us to be independent, honest. We can be as progressive as we want, no corporate media influence, and that's all because of you guys. We love doing the show with our members. Hit the join button, become one of the Young Turks.